talk, I identify physical and mobile DMV site locations in North Carolina. Dr. Burcu Adivar, hopefully I didn't crush that too badly, and Matt Rogers will be presenting. And are we ready to switch over? We are. So without further ado, actually, Dr. Burcu is a professor of management and assistant dean of Rodwell College of Business and Economics at Fayetteville State University. After completing her bachelor's degree in industrial engineering, she received her master's degree of industrial engineering at North Carolina State University. Before joining Fayetteville State University, she was a faculty member at the Department of Logistics Management at Izmir University of Economics. And between 2003 and 2006, she held an optimization specialist position in the Analytical Solutions Department of SAS Institute in Cary, North Carolina. I'd say she's probably wicked smart. Matt Rogers, I know he's an MBA candidate, but who cares about that? He's from my hometown, so that's all you need to know. That means he's super cool.
Yes.
So with that, I will pass it on.
Thank you. Again, thank you. It's our pleasure to be here today. And I'd like to give a brief background of this study. It started as a capstone project. In our college, 3 years ago, we started a business intelligence and data analytics program endorsed by SAS. And there are 5 courses. One of the courses is the Advanced Analytics Project. And it was, I was the instructor for the course, and Dr. Majed Al-Ghandour, who is a manager at NCDOT, was my friend, and we thought to tackle one of NCDOT's problems. And he said, there is a very serious problem right now. We are having so much issues about issuing the real IDs. There is a deadline. I will also talk about that. So this project started as a capstone project. Then it evolved to a technology transfer contract. And now we are part of the Center of Excellence that has been recently established by North Carolina DOT and the UNC system. And Fayetteville State University is one of the 17 UNC system universities. So this is our team. I was the faculty advisor, and Dr. Al-Ghandour is our industry advisor. And we had 3 MBA students working on this project, and you see Matt and other members are unfortunately unable to make it. Yes, and this is the brief outline of our project or presentation. I will talk about objectives, methodology, and data collection. And then Matthew, he will continue with the analytical part because it is most of their work and their visualizations. As I said, there is a federal enforcement about the real ID. And according to this enforcement, people residing in North Carolina, they have the deadline of October 2020 to switch their IDs into real IDs if they like to fly with their driver's license or to get into federal buildings. So there is a huge demand. It is about 5 to 6 million, according to our projections, demand for real ID. Some of it has already been fulfilled because this project has been done like 8 months ago. And the current capabilities of North Carolina DOT was only 114 physical facilities, DMV locations, and 27 mobile locations. So the project scope, of course, we looked at the whole state, and we used the census data to get the current population and projected inflow from other states, because North Carolina is having lots of inflow, lots of people moving from North to North Carolina. And we included both the physical and the mobile locations. We didn't include the online services because our focus here is the Real ID, and it is not available as an online service. If this is first time you are getting your Real ID, you have to go to one of those DMV locations with your documents. And coverage is based on 15 to 20 miles radius. You will see some visualizations about this. So our objective was to help DMV to locate some new locations, because at the beginning they thought they need new facilities. And we said, okay, let's use some data analytics, some visualization tools, which means ArcGIS for us, and let's get the best locations for you to help, to satisfy all this demand. And I have been working on location problems for a long time. This is one of our methodology. We work with multiple profit or non-profit institutions, and this is in one of our papers. So we use business model framework, business model canvas, along with analytical framework, because location decisions, they are complicated, and it's not all about numbers. There are qualitative factors. So on your left, you'll see the qualitative factors, mostly expert knowledge. On the right-hand side, we deal with the data analytics. And then we come up with the optimal location decisions. So when we look at the DMV operations as a whole, this is the business model canvas. Students needed to get to know, DMV, their values, their constraints, their stakeholders. And this is the 4th version. It takes multiple iterations to get this business model canvas, but at the end, it gives a very good perspective, especially for our students to understand what they are dealing with. And based on this business model canvas, we were also able to, set the multi-criteria decision for our next steps. So in the remaining of the presentation, you will see that we used our methodology is multi-criteria decision-making approach, especially factor rating method, along with AHP, analytical hierarchy process, and some GIS analysis. There are some key terminologies like Euclidean distance, normalization, weighted sums, and over or under capacity DMV locations, but Matt will keep using them, so at this moment, I switch it to Matt.
Okay. So what we did, went through, we determined some decision criteria. We actually found 16 of them that we use in determining the optimal locations. You can see them listed up here. A few of the more important ones were, of course, population, cost of living. We did proximity to highways, university, hospitals. A lot of the convenience ones were important. We then took these criteria and using a Likert scale, we did a pairwise comparison to determine which ones were more important versus the other one, and we were able to develop a matrix that showed us the scoring. And from the scores that we got, we were able to determine weights to find out which ones of these criteria were more important versus the other ones. And you can see right here that if you look at the top one, population density was definitely one of the more important ones. The second one was shopping malls, again with the convenience, and then of course the highway was rounding up the third. Let's see here. Here's a list of where we got a lot of our data. A lot of our data came from census information from a census.gov website. We also were able to use some data that was given to us by the NCDOT and some other locations where we were able to find our data. We then went and we needed to figure out of the existing DMV locations, which ones were underserved and which ones were overserved. So step one was to, we got a list of all the physical and mobile locations. We had a series of assumptions, of course. We did our capacity calculation to find out, for each of these DMV locations, they had a number of workstations in them, and we were able to assume that each workstation was able to service a certain amount of people daily. So if we had, say we had a DMV location that had 2 workstations, we figured 50 people per day per workstation. That would be 100 people per location. It was a little bit more for the physical locations, a little bit less for the mobile locations. Let's see, then we calculated the demand. We used census data to figure out the county populations of those that were 15 years or of age or older. And then of course we identified the DMV locations in each county. From that we were able to calculate the demand. Step 4, we determined the locations that were actually over and under capacity. And then by using a gap of over 40 customers per day, we were able to determine which locations were actually under capacity. This is a little bit tough to read, but this was a chart that we came up with to determine which locations were where the capacity gap was greater than 40 customers per day. And from that, we were able to determine where we needed to focus on. So finding the alternative locations. So we did a suitability analysis using ArcGIS. I'll kind of go through this in the next few slides. But step 1 was the initial GIS processing and determining the Euclidean distance. We then normalized the data, weighted sum analysis, and we overlaid the data, determined the new location identification, and then overlaying with the demand and supply. So here you'll see our ArcGIS maps that we had. The one on the top left is the universities and their Euclidean distance. Those were all the universities in North Carolina. On the next one, to the right, highway exits. Those are all the highway exits. Hospitals on the bottom left, and then the shopping centers, bottom right. We then, because these were all measured in different units, we normalized them to put them all on the same, level playing field. And the highway exits, again on the top left, universities, shopping centers, and hospitals on the bottom. Okay, so we then took those 4 series of locations and we did weighted sum analysis. We determined that the highway exits were more important. The shopping centers were the next more important than universities, and finally, ultimately, the hospitals we determined weren't as important as the other ones, and gave them weights. Put them into ArcGIS, and we were able to come up with this map. You'll notice that the red locations, or the red blotches there, are the most suitable areas for where there should be DMV locations, and then, of course, the lighter colors are least suitable areas. So we then took the existing locations and overlaid them onto the suitability map that we found, and you'll notice the green locations. And let me apologize first, I'm colorblind, so it's a little difficult for me. But I believe the green locations are the physical locations, and the yellow ones are the mobile locations. So for each of these locations in ArcGIS, we gave them a 20-mile radius to determine the coverage. And we found out that for the existing locations, there was already substantial coverage. And there's only, you can look in the bottom map, there's only a couple of places in North Carolina that weren't really covered. So we then decided to reduce that to make it more convenient to people. Instead of having a 20-mile radius, we're going to do a 15-mile radius. And that's what that top map is up there. And it opened up a lot more of the state. And we were able to, from there, be able to find some alternative locations. And we actually came up with 18 alternative locations, and those are the ones on the bottom map in blue. And here's a kind of a summary of our findings here. Again, the blue ones are the alternate locations, and then the green, the physical locations. Yellow stars are the mobile locations. And you'll notice that we have the mobile red dots in the center of the mobile location, yellow stars, and then the green stars. And those ones that have the red dots on are the ones that are actually underutilized or had under capacity. There was too much demand, more people there than what they were able to handle. And these are our 18 locations listed. I don't know if many of you are very familiar with North Carolina, but a lot of these areas are in pretty urban settings, and there are actually a few that are in rural settings as well. Okay, so we then used multiple criteria decision analysis to determine which places were more important in a rank for the locations, to determine which ones of those 18 would be more important to have locations for. So we did the pairwise comparison, and then we did the scoring, and ultimately the location ranking. And this is, you can see from the data that we got from the census data, census tract data, and the other websites, we were able to get proximity, to the highways, university hospitals, the population, and we were then able to, for those 18 locations, enter in the data and determine which of these locations. We were able to rank all these locations, determine that Bahama was actually the most optimal place to put in a DMV location, and then of course it goes down the line, and South Mills was the 18th. So in conclusion, regardless of the new locations, one, we want to increase public awareness, so people know that as we get closer to October 2020 for the real ID, there might be a little bit of difficulties getting your ID, and you should have that. You should be thinking about it. 2, opening counters at airports and high traffic federal buildings, just to kind of give out information and make people more aware that it's happening. Balancing the load between under and over capacity locations by moving mobile units. These mobile units can be moved to different locations so we can handle that increased demand. Finding integrated optimal routing and marketing for the mobile units. Determining which locations again would be the best. Increasing the capacity of the 21 physical, 8 mobile locations. Maybe we can overstaff them or have people use overtime so we can handle some of this demand, at least until 2020. Okay, so before we open these locations, you can determine the optimal number of the physical and mobile units to be opened while balancing the demand allocation, converting high demand mobile location to physical locations. If you had a mobile location that was had really high demand, you might consider putting an actual physical brick and mortar building there. Opening new facilities at our recommended 18 locations, conducting surveys to find out the where new office building nearby the suggested geo coordinates are. And this is going forward, future research. Of course, here are our references, and that was our capstone project. Any questions?
Questions?
Is it working / did it work?
Do you want to?
Is it working / did it work?
We presented this to the commissioner, Justin, who's responsible. He's the ICE.
Yeah, we presented this to the DMV commissioner. Now, are you talking, did it work? Were we able to get them to, pull the trigger on these new locations? It hasn't gotten that far yet.
But if you remember those stars and conclusions, those two items are now our ongoing project, funded projects with the DMV. So before, we basically told them like, new locations are not the serious problems. Looking at all this data, between imbalance between demand and supply, you should first allocate your resources better to level off all the productivity across different DMVs, because some DMVs have personnel, staff, team idle, but some DMVs, they are working extremely busy, having 2.5 hours, more than 2 hours waiting times. So there's an inequality across the facilities. Now we are working on making it more uniform. So it will work, and we will present our results at the end of December, and then based on that, they will consider opening new locations. Also, another thing, we use Euclidean distances here, but as part of this funded project, now we are using travel time coverage, actual travel time coverage. So it is going to change, it may change the results here. So, thank you.
Is real ID instead of or in addition to a driver's license?
Instead of.
Instead of.
Do you think it's federal mandate?
Yeah, there's a Real ID Act that was, when was it? It came out in 2002, but they're just now enforcing it. And so you're going to need, in North Carolina, it's a star that they put on the top right corner of your ID, and it's just that extra.
There's certain things that make it less penetrable to forging, right?
It is basically to distinguish legal and illegal immigrants, because you have to provide all those documentation that will let you, they decide if you are legal or illegal.
Does North Carolina have an issue? I haven't heard about this in Texas.
This is nationwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
This
mean,
is
I wonder
nationwide.
why, I guess it's a lot of analysis. I mean, I don't think we do this in Texas. Do we just suck, or?
You might already be okay.
I'm just wondering, like, are y'all like late to the game of trying to do this? And so it's like,
It depends. It started in 2002 or 3. Different states took this at different times. Like Virginia, I believe, is ahead of us. Do you have any Virginia?
This is already in the works. You can go and get your Real ID. It's just, we assume that, like anything else, everybody's going to wait till the last minute to do it.
okay, you're planning ahead.
So yeah, so we determine where the potential differences in capacity and demand will be, and try to come up with a solution for that.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.